And again, it is the Health Morning Show right here on HSTV. Now we're zooming away from sport. Yes, we've had a little information from the sports world, but then do not forget, it is not only sports we do here. We do health, we do entertainment, we do politics as well. And now it is the Stay Alive segment, where, as I said previously in the intro, it is another eye-opening segment, educative as well. It is informative, where we're going to talk about food labeling products. Yes, we have, a lot of cases right here in Ghana where you can go into the supermarkets or the shopping malls and then you pick up this product, but do you really read what is on the label, and do you know how it can affect you, if it is good for you or if it is bad for you concerning your diet and all of that? Yes, they come with their own diet related diseases, but then do we know how it affects us? Well, do not worry, that is why we are here to inform you of all of that as well. And I have two very big guests. Yes, we're honored to have them here in the studios with us. So first of all, I'm going to introduce the two of you. So we have Maxwell Bisala Conlan.
Yeah.
Yes, so he is a dietitian at the University of Ghana, the hospital right there. He's a dietitian over there. And then also I have here in the studios with me Juliet Boateng. So she is also a policy and advocacy officer for the Ghana Non-Communicable Diseases Alliance. So good morning to the two of you. Lady and gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
You're fine. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're honored to have you here as well, because we know that as you're here, we are going to get more educated on something that most Ghanaians are not even aware of when we talk about food labeling and all of that. But then before we move into food labeling, you are the policy and advocacy officer for Ghana Non-Communicable Disease Alliance, and you're also a dietitian for the University of Ghana. But then you come in together. First of all, we want you to tell us why exactly you're here, why you've taken up this platform to come and educate us on this.
Well, thank you very much, Irama, and thank you so much to your audience. I would like to mention that we are here as part of the Healthier Diet for Healthy Lives project. That is a University of Ghana School of Public Health led project, which is mostly focused on protecting food environment in Ghana by enacting policies that would help protect people from non-communicable diseases. Yeah, so basically the Healthier Diet for Healthier Life project, as I said, is University of Ghana led. However, there are other coalition members who also form part of the project, and Ghana NCD Alliance happens to be one of them. The bigger umbrella in the HD4HL project, that's for short, the bigger umbrella where we belong as Ghana NCD Alliance is the CAPA, that is the Coalition of Actors for Public Health Advocacy. So we are part of CAPA, and CAPA is part of HD4HL. And Mr. Maxwell here happens to be part of the Ghana Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and they are also a member of the CAPA. So we are here because of the Healthier Diet for Healthy Lives project.
Oh, okay. Mr. Maxwell, do you have anything to add up to?
Yeah, so basically we are looking at how we can promote healthier diets because NCD prevalence is increasing. Yeah. And we think that as a coalition we can do something to reduce the prevalence. And that is why this project was being instituted by my mentor, Professor Amos Lau of the University of Ghana School of Public Health. So I'm very happy to be here and advocating and helping people to live a healthier life.
Interesting. Yes, we're also happy to have you here to educate us more on how to live a healthier life. I think that is the key thing in living, how to live a healthier life. So let's move straight into food labeling. Now when we come to Ghana, even I have people that are even guilty of this, where you take a product and you don't even check what is on the label. You just take okay, this is what I want, so that's it, I'm going straight with it. So first of all, tell us, why do you think we should concentrate on food labels? Why is it important for we Ghanaians to make it a priority to check first before we get the product?
Yeah, so I would like to begin with a question. I mean, how confident are you in interpreting food labels? Honestly, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Honestly, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm not even 5, 6. I'm not very confident in interpreting them at all.
So exactly that is where the problem is. There's a lot of people out there who do not understand what food labels means. A lot of Ghanaians, there was a research among tertiary students that tried to test their knowledge on food labels. Almost close to 60% did not even attempt to answer the question on what food label is. 60%? Yes. And then the few that attempted, did not get the answers right. So what it means is that a lot of people out there just go into the shelves. They pick a product, they see a lot of writings on it, and they have no idea what it is. But I don't blame the people out there, because it's a very technical information that you need to be taught. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to be able to interpret it. So that is why we are here. We want to at least get into a layman's understanding of what food label is. When I go into the shelf, I mean, when I pick a product, what are some of the things do I need to look at? So just as a book has a table of content that tells you what you expect or what is in that book. The same way food labels are more like tags or written descriptions on a product. That it tells you exactly what it's in the product. Yes, and as a consumer, you need to be interested in what you are eating. You can't just eat anything and not know what is inside. And so food labels basically tries to tell you or communicate to you what is in that food. And that kind of help you to know whether what you are eating is healthier or not. So basically that is what food labels means. Now under the Public Health Act, that's section 148 Act 851, which was backed by Parliament in 2012, the FDA in Ghana is actually responsible for the regulation of food labels. So what it means is that every manufacturer, every company is supposed to have a food label on a product. If you fail to do that, that product will not be approved by the FDA. And so one of the things as a consumer you want to be careful is when you pick a product and there's no food label, then it means it's not been approved by FDA. And what it means is that when you take it at your own risk. So I would prefer that you take a product that has a food label on it. So it is a requirement, but some manufacturers still find a way and push their products into the market without having a food label on it. So, I mean, basically, the law is being enforced, but sometimes there are loopholes, you know, so meaning that you cannot sell a product without a food label. It means that it goes in contravention to the Public Health Act. And if there's an issue of food poisoning, you can be arrested and be tried in court. Yeah, so that is what food labels tend to do. They try to protect the consumer. And once it will be going through FDA, then people will do due diligence to ensure that the food is safe.
So that means the FDA is there to check, you know, if there are any poisonous substances in the product. In the product,
yes. So they check that and check the nutrition facts as well to find out what the things you stated on the product, whether it is actually true or not. People can tell a lot of lies. They will tell you that this product is 100% natural.
Just for it to sell on the market.
Yes. So they just use their marketing gimmicks to get people to be interested in the product. But when you go in and you test the product, you see that there may be some harmful chemicals in it. Or even the label will tell you it's 5% fat, but when you check, it's about 20% fat, which is a deception to the public. And that is why food label is very, very important. So what it does, it helps the consumer to at least make healthier choices. So when we go into the indicators, you would understand that when you see a particular food product with a certain percentage of fat, then you should know that this particular food is not to be eaten. You know, if you have an allergy, the ingredients in the food label will help you know that I am not supposed to eat this food because the allergen that I am reactive to is in that ingredient list. And that is why it is important to look at. It helps in safety of the food, and it also helps you to align with your health goals. For instance, if you are someone who has blood pressure and you're asked to reduce your salt, I mean, one of the things you want to look out is the sodium content of the food label. And as we go into details, if you are taught to be able to interpret these things, it kind of helps you to be able to make the right choices. So it has a direct impact on your overall health. That's if you are always sensitive and always looking at the food labels.
Interesting. I think we need a deeper understanding as to some of the terms they put on these labels, because some of them people do not really understand it, you know. So yeah, we're going to get to that, but then before that, let me come to you, Madam Juliet. So tell me, in Ghana, I don't know if, you know, we are really upholding to the policies we have concerning the food labeling and all of that. So why are you really concerned about Ghanaians, you know, making it effective in taking into consideration these food labeling policies?
Well, I must say that the food choices in itself is not like the means to the end. There's the bigger picture of the whole intervention.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm personally very glad that we get to have this discussion in September.
Okay, why is that in this
Because 21st September is Universal Health Coverage Day. And when we speak of universal health coverage, I mean, it's not consequential that the UN is also holding a high-level meeting on UHC just in September again. So the bigger picture is the fact that we are looking at a Ghana where everyone has equal access to health care without being constrained by their financial means. We are looking at affordable health care, which is still quality. And we cannot talk about universal health coverage without talking about prevention. If people would enjoy health equity, if the health services we have would be enough to cater for the number of people we have trooping into the health centers, it means we'd have to take prevention very seriously. And food labeling policies is a big aspect of preventive measures because you know that these are very cost effective. First of all, companies are already branding their product. So it wouldn't really hurt to say put on the right information in simple terms, bold, legible, that everybody could read, understand, and make informed choices on the food they are buying. So for us, it's about the bigger picture, where we look at people having equal access to health care because people are more serious about being preventive in their food choices and people are more concerned about what they consume. There's a Ghanaian adage that says that it's either food becomes your medicine or medicine becomes your food. And so if we are looking at a world where health is equitable to all, we should be more focused on preventive measures. And in talking about that, we cannot talk about UHC without talking about non-communicable diseases.
Okay, tell us more.
We know today WHO is saying, and of course I believe it, 43% of the Ghanaian populace is dying due to NCDs. And that seems always with us, but when we say premature death, maybe it's more understandable because people are dying, leaving their families behind. People are spending wholesome amounts of money on drugs. They are avoiding to pay their children's school fees. It's huge. And so adopting food labeling policies, which are very cost effective, easy to implement, and has very effective turnovers in terms of its benefits, is something that government must be very much concerned about because the people of Ghana are counting on the government. In fact, the government owes the people of Ghana that right to have a healthy food environment, an environment that people are not restricted by what is available to choose, but they have an option where whatever is available to choose is healthy and has equal information that will inform their choices. This is why we are concerned.
Interesting. But then you being concerned, let me say, so far in Ghana, how well would you say, they are put into the policies?
Well, I think RD has spoken at length about the Food and Drugs Authority, and I'll take this opportunity to applaud the Food and Drugs Authority because personally I think they are top notch. They are on the game. They are responsive. They are responsive to the calls of the Ghanaians. They are responsive to the calls of public health advocates, and they listen. I mean, because most of the projects on prevention that we do has a lot to do with the Food and Drugs Authority, and they being the sole regulator of foods and drugs in Ghana. They've made some remarkable efforts in allowing institutes and then producers to align by their labeling policies. But as we speak, well, I cannot speak for Food and Drugs Authority, but I could only quote what has been said by themselves, and they say that they are currently reviewing their food labeling policies and guidelines to incorporate global best practices, because currently there are food labeling policies that the FDA instructs their producers to go by. However, they think that more can be done. They believe that there are best practices out there that Ghanaians could reap more health benefits from. And so they tell us that they are currently working on incorporating these global practices that are more effective. So we are making headway. We are making headway. Yeah.
Okay, then that's good to know. But then let's move to you, Mr. Maxwell. Let's move into the nutrition aspect. So yes, as I keep saying, we have a lot of things on these labels. But then tell us, I as a consumer or any other person as a consumer, what exactly should we look out for on that product, you know, to tell us that, okay, this is what I should buy?
Yeah. So when you walk into a supermarket and you get to the shelves, when you pick the product, there are certain indicators or certain things you should look out for.
Okay.
The first thing you would want to look out for is the expiration date. That's expiry date of the products. That is very, very important. I have so many clients who buy the product, they will consume it halfway. And then later they will realize that the product has expired. You know, and expiration date talks about the period in which the food can be consumed. So beyond that period, the food can become unwholesome, meaning that when you eat the food, you can get an infection or something. So you check at the expiration date, make sure that the expiration date is up to the date of what the product should be. If it's 1 month to the product expiration date, I don't think it's important. It's edible. But at least it should be at least 2 months or even more before you can use the product. Some want to wait until the complete day, which is also allowed. But for me, if it's a month to expiration date, I don't think I'll feel comfortable. So I think consumers should first look at the expiry date of the product. Number two, you want to look at the ingredient list. This is very
before
important.
we move to the expiry dates, you know, talking about the expiry dates, sometimes the way it has been written and all of that, some people might not be able to interpret it. So tell us, how exactly do you write it? What is the font size and what is the manner?
So mostly the challenge with most people is that they struggle to find where it is. It's mostly hidden. So what you do is that you have to make sure you check at the bottom of either the can or the container. Sometimes under or is on top of the container or the can, or sometimes on the sideways. So you have to figure it out and find your way. So you see something, they'll write EXP. EXP means that it's a short form of expiration date or expiry date. Now under that you see a column. Then you have what we call the MGF. MGF means that manufacturing date. Or you have what we call BB, best before. So you have the manufacturing date and you have the expiry date. In some product they'll write best before. So it's either expiry date or best before. So it means that the manufacturing date and the expiry date, when you look at it, most products is about 3 years. 2 to 3 years. So, but you should be focusing not on you should focus on both. So you cannot have a manufacturing date that is lower than the expiry. It means something is wrong. So it should be earlier. So let's say if the manufacturing date is in January 2021, then you expect the expiration date to be in either 2023 or 2024. It can be less than the manufacturing date. So, but the most important thing you focus on is either the expiry date or the best before date. So if you see that it has already expired, the best thing is to avoid that product. So that's what you look out for.
So is that an accurate font size as to how these manufacturers should do it?
Well, there are regulations that tell how it's done. But you see, some people would just try to decrease the font size or even hide it because they don't want people.
Sometimes it's not even visible.
Yes, they don't want people to know. You know, so sometimes it's not even written in full. It's like the normal date you write. You see 09 stroke 01, then you see 21. That means that if you see 21 at the end, it means the year is 2021. Then when you see 08 or 07, it means it's in July. Then you can see maybe 01, it means it's in January. So maybe 1st January, then maybe if it's 01, that's in January. Then you have the month, which is September, and then the year there. So depending on how it is written, I mean, most of us write dates and we write the day. So if it's 01, it means that's 1st of what? July. 0107, that's 1st of July, then 2021. It means that this product will expire in 2021. Some you see 12, and then you have stroke 0722, meaning that on the 12th of July 2022, that product will expire. So it comes in that form. You have to find a way to figure it out. It's very, very important before you take the product. Yeah. Then the next thing you want to look at is the ingredient list.
Okay.
This is very, very important because you must know what you are eating. Because if I have a product and there's ingredient list and I have another product that does not have an ingredient list, I'll go with the product that has the ingredient list. Yeah. Why? Because as a consumer, I am concerned about my safety and I need to know what is inside. Now, this typically helps you to decide whether there's a particular ingredient in the product that can be harmful to your health. Okay. For instance, if you are allergic to wheat, we have some people who are allergic to wheat. We call it gluten containing foods. Okay. You know? So if you're allergic to wheat and you see in the product list you have wheat flour, which let's say it's a biscuit, how would you know this biscuit is made from? Some are made from cassava flour, maize flour, and soybean flour. So when you see wheat in the ingredient, it means that when you take that product, you are going to react, you are going to have an allergy. So the best thing is to avoid eating that food. If you are allergic to shellfishes, there are some people who are allergic to shellfishes. So when you see any component of a shellfish in the ingredient list, you are going to react. So the best thing is to avoid. So the ingredient list tells you what you are eating, and it helps those who are allergic to certain foods to avoid those foods in case they see it in the product list. You know, you may have certain chemicals or certain combinations that can increase your risk of cancer. You know, and so once you see some of those things inside the ingredient list, you need to be concerned. Then, aside the ingredient list, we have the nutrition facts profile. Okay. So with this nutrition fact profile, we have the calorie section that tells you how much calories you should eat. Okay. It's mostly in per 100 gram. Okay. So meaning that if you pick 100 gram of the product, let's say Nido, if I pick 100 gram of Nido in terms of weight, I'm supposed to get a certain nutrient profile. Then a 7, it comes with per 100 gram and a 7. A 7 is the amount you will typically consume. Okay. Because you can't eat a whole 100 gram, that's too much. So that maybe the whole container of Nido may be around 100 gram. Then out of it, how much you fed will be the per 7. Okay. So some come in sachet. So the small Nido sachet, I think it's about 30 gram. So meaning that when you pick 30 gram, they'll tell you how much calories you are getting. Meaning that if I take 30 gram of that sachet, this is the amount of calories I'm supposed to get. Now, the calorie information helps you to know how much you are eating. For instance, if a product has about 500 calories per serving, then it means that if you take 4 of that product, you are getting 2,000 calories. Meaning that you are going to be at risk of obesity. So if I know this product has a lot of calories, then I would want to eat less of it so that my other daily food intake will balance it. So you want to look at the calories. Then after the calories, we have the major nutrients. So we have carbohydrates, we have protein, we have fat. Okay. So quickly, the carbohydrate comes in total carbohydrate. Now, when you see total carbohydrate, what it means is that it's the combination of added sugars and the natural sugar or carbohydrate from the food. Okay. That gives you the total carbohydrate. Now, the figures or the values in there will confuse you. So I'll use the percentage. That is easy. So by it, you have something we call DV, percentage DV. The percentage DV talks about your daily percentage requirement that product would contribute for your daily intake. Okay. So if I have total sugars in my product to be like, let's say 15%, what it means is that I'm getting 15% of sugars from that product for what I am required for the day, meaning the rest of the 85 will come from the other foods. So if a product is giving you 20% of your daily requirement, then it means that that product is high. And then it depends on the nutrients. So if it's high in sugar, if it's 20% high in sugar, then you want to avoid such a product. It means that you are going to take a lot of sugar. And then when you add your banku and other things, you are going to exceed. And then sugar, we are concerned because of the obesity. So what it means is that you are going to be at risk of obesity, and that will increase your risk of NCDs, as she was talking about. Then for the protein, mostly it's not a problem. So in terms of protein, people don't usually consume much. So you have a whole tin of milk containing just about 8 grams, which is just equivalent to 1 boiled egg. So people think that when you take milk, you are getting a lot of protein. It's not much.
No, okay.
When you really need protein is from the fish, the chicken, and the eggs.
Okay.
Because the milk is just water, sugar, and oil, and a little bit of milk powder. So the protein is not much of a problem, because the per serving of protein on the average will be about 4.2, which is not an issue. Then you come to the fat. This is where the issue is.
Okay.
So when you are looking at the fat, not every fat that is unhealthy. You want to break it down to what type of fat. So you have saturated fat, you have trans fat, and you have polyunsaturated fat, which includes monosaturated and other things. So what you pay attention is the saturated and the trans fat. So if the percentage DV written by it, so you see it by it, so you have saturated fat and you have 20%. Okay, meaning that that product is giving you 20% of saturated fat for what you need for the whole day.
Okay.
And the recommendation for saturated fat is that it should be less than 7%. So if a particular product is giving you 20%, it means you've already exceeded.
Yeah.
And you are going to eat other foods. So what it means is that when if you are not careful, your cholesterol levels will increase, because saturated fat is what the body used to produce cholesterol. So once you make the raw material available, the body will produce cholesterol. The same with trans fat. So you look at the percentage. So if the percentage is more than 20%, you have to avoid that food. For saturated fat, it should even be less. It should be about, less than 5% or even 1%. Okay, so when you look at the grams, it will be difficult to understand. So you look at the percentages. Then salt, sodium is representing salt on the product. So when you have a product that is giving you 20% of sodium, it means it's high in salt. If you take it and you have blood pressure, your BP will go up. So when you take the product, watch out if you have blood pressure, watch out for the sodium and find out whether it is 20% or less. If it's less than 10%, it's sometimes better. But anything above 20% will be very high. Okay, so that does not help. Then the nutrients, mostly you have iron, you have calcium, you have vitamin D, and then you also have vitamin A. Now for the nutrients, we need more of it. So if the percentage is high, like the healthy nutrients, you rather would encourage the person eat that.
More.
So if I have iron that is 20%,
it's okay.
It's okay. Then you want a higher percentage. If I have calcium, which is 20%, that is good. If I have, let's say, iron, which is 20%, then I can go for it. Now, if those values are less, then it's not good. It means it's not going to give you enough of the essential nutrients.
Okay.
So if it's a healthy nutrient, you need a higher percentage, and that is good. But if it's unhealthy nutrients, which is sugar, salt, and fat, higher percentage of 20% will become harmful to the body. So you see that food label can actually determine the outcome of your health. And that is where the Alliance for NCDs comes in. So we are trying to help people to be able to read the labels so that they can make the right choices that can have less impact on the outcome of their health. Okay. Yeah, so basically, these are the key things you look at. The expiration date, that's the expiry date. You look at the ingredient list. You look at the calories, the percentages in terms of the different nutrients. 20% means high. 5% means low. So if it's a healthy nutrient, you want 20%, like iron, calcium, vitamin D, and all that. If it's unhealthy, like sodium, fat, sugar, and salt, you want a 5% value. If it's 20%, then that unhealthy product will cause harm to the body. So that's how you go about it. So don't bother about the grams, just bother about the percentages. 5% means less, 20% means high. A higher percentage of a healthy nutrient is good, but a lower percentage of unhealthy nutrient like sugar, salt, and fat is what you require, which is less than 5%. Anything beyond 5%, if you keep eating that food, you are going to be at risk of increasing your risk of either hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and other chronic diseases.
Okay. But then before in your submission, you kept mentioning saturated fats and trans fats. We'd like a breakdown of exactly what that is.
Yeah, so saturated fat is a type of fat that clogs the blood vessels. So that is where the body that is what the body used to produce cholesterol. And it's mostly found in fat from meat. So fat from milk, fat from your goat's meat, your beef, any of the animal sources. You can get some from processed foods, canned products, margarine, butter, and some types of oil as well. Then the trans fat is a type of fat that is gotten from margarine. Most of the biscuits, even our bread, So when you put in a lot of margarine, so it is a type of fat you get when you add hydrogen into oil, then it solidifies it. Okay. So basically, these two are the raw materials for producing cholesterol. Meaning when you eat 20% of that from the product, and you eat other food in addition, you are likely to be at risk of high cholesterol because you are going to produce the body with the raw material for producing cholesterol. So you want to cut down on that. So basically, those type of fats are not good. But the ones that are good is the monocytrated, which comes from the nuts and seeds, and then the omega-3 and the omega-6 fatty acids. That one is found from sunflower, soya bean. You can get some from sesame seeds or your canola oil. And then the oily fishes, your salmon, your tuna, and all that. You can get that kind of fat from those sources. So you should rather focus on the type of fat and not just the total fat, because the total fat is everything. But if in the product the saturated and trans fat is giving you 20% or even more than 10%, you should be careful with that food. Yeah. Okay,
interesting. Now let's move to you, Madam Juliet. So, you know, talking about the practices we have right here in Ghana concerning our food labeling policies, let me just know if there are any international practices that, you know, Ghana's food labeling policies align with or we can imitate concerning internationally.
Well, yes. So as I mentioned early on, currently the FDA has some policies with regards to the labeling, their labeling guidelines for their manufacturers. But I think I would more like focus on some of the pitfalls that globally have been frowned on, and then we see that locally is affecting people's ability to choose what is right for them to eat. So, for instance, RD has already spoken about the visibility of these details. Yeah, it's difficult to actually find them. Sometimes you are looking for the expiration date and you have to turn in the whole thing upside down before you find it. And sometimes you even find it and it's so faint. The choice of font, the choice of ink, it's faint than the name of the product. Yeah. So I mean, if we could invest a lot of our writing and designing into the actual profile models that we want on the food labels, for instance, descriptive of the ingredients written boldly, like the way the name of the product is written boldly, it will be easier for people to read. One other aspect of current labeling that I think also doesn't really align with global practices would be the how difficult it is for the unlettered to be familiar with. So, I mean, for some Ghanaians, they just wouldn't read because, for lack of a better word, they are unable to read. Yeah. So we think this our current practices do not benefit those who are unlettered. Yeah. And so there are some global measures where they use color codes. So as RD spoke about, we have the 20% being high and the 5% being low. So we could have the high being colored with green and the low being colored with red. So you really don't have to read to be able to understand that this is what this food label means. So I pick it up as soon as I see red, it means it's high in saturated fat. As soon as I see green, oh, it's good, it has low amounts of sugar. So there are very good labeling practices out there that are friendly to both the lettered, the unlettered, and most importantly, there are policies that instigate changes and reformulation in the industry. And I think that's the top-notch most importance of food labeling policies. We are looking for a food labeling policy that is not just serving consumers. We are looking at a food labeling policy that is also reinforcing the industry, the food and beverage industry, to also want to reformulate their procedures, their production. So if I'm mandated by Ghana's policies to put on whatever I put in my, let's say,
your product,
my product on the label, if I'm mandated legally to put it on the product, then of course I wouldn't put something that I have to declare that is bad. Yeah, because I can't put a whole amount of sugar in my product and then still have to declare that, you can't buy it, it's bad. No producer wants to run at that kind of loss. And so we are looking for policies that will push the producers to say, because I have to abide by this policy, then I have to change my production, I'll have to change my recipe, just so I'm able to meet the requirements and put on a lot of greens on my label, and people get to assume my product as very effective. One may say, okay, so they could declare the product as green, whereas their recipe is red. There is a possibility for that. But that is why we have the FDA. The FDA does not approve of products that have not been tested. So you bring your claims, and the FDA does well to test the product to see if your claims align with the indicators you have stated on your product. And so we public health advocates, honestly, we want to say that we are trusting the Ministry of Health, we are trusting the Food and Drugs Authority to actually be in the gap where we cannot be. We are trusting them to do this a lot for us, that as the product comes in, they are properly tested, properly approved, and whatever people go to the supermarkets to buy, they are sure that whatever is written on them is exactly what it contains.
Okay, interesting. So some of the policies that have been made already, how well would you say it is having an impact on the local food producers? Because as you said, I'm not sure a lot of manufacturers are even taking note of these policies and stuff. So how well would you say these policies have made an impact on them?
Well, it's good we are here today. It's part of the reason we are here, and I'm glad that RD has taken us through a lot of parameters to look out for when you are choosing. But on the average, most Ghanaians do not really, they just focus on the brand they want. Honestly, that's what I think. People focus on the brand that they want, and then when they go out there, maybe I want so and so brand, they just purchase it. They are not so particular about what it contains, and we have the understanding issue. People don't even understand if they choose to read. So if I don't understand, why should I even bother myself? I mean, so, and people choose based on preference, taste, cost. So people choose products sometimes not because they think it's healthy, but because that's what they can afford.
That's what is less expensive.
But you see, that's where the food labeling comes in. If we have policies that force every producer to put in what is quality, we are not going to have disparity in terms of prices to the extent that people will be, I want to choose the less expensive one. People will have the prices at par because people are using equal quality products to make their product, and so the prices will be somewhat almost the same, and then people will get to choose what's available, which is equally healthy.
And to add to what he's saying, so it puts the consumer on the toes, because if I'm making a product and people are realizing that there's a lot of fat or sugar, you have some consumers who are now going back to review their product to reduce the sugar, the trans fat, and the saturated fat, which I talk about, just because they want to sell. So you realize that recently, carnation milk, initially there was different types. Now carnation milk is in the market because it's low fat. You know, we have other milks. Even Ideal had they had a low fat option which was green. So many companies are making available healthier options. Because if you don't do that by your food label, if someone who understands it would run away from your product, and so food labels tend to help the consumer to be responsible in terms of what he puts into the product, and I think that it's a very good thing and a win on the part of the consumer. Yes. And then talking about the labeling too, in certain jurisdictions they use the color coding, but in Ghana we are not there yet.
Oh, okay. So in Ghana we are not yet there.
No.
We are still using the
small.
Yes. So in certain parts like Europe, they use color coding. So red means 20%. So you see the product 20%, and then it will be fat red. If it's medium, it will be amber. They use the traffic lights colors. Then if it's green, it's 5%. So green means less than 5%. I mean, the amber is those in the middle, and then red is 20% and above. So it's easy to tell. So once I pick the product and I see saturated fat red and I have cholesterol, the best thing is to avoid that product. If I have it as amber, I would have to be careful if I'm consuming the food. If it's less, then I am comfortable consuming that food. So it's very easy for the consumer to interpret. So I hope that the FDA will get there one day where we'll use color coding for our product. But most manufacturers don't like that because it's easy for the consumer to know if that is good or bad. Okay. Exactly. And so they tend to run away from it. But I hope we get there one day, because it will even force them to review their ingredient list and have low percentages of the unhealthy nutrients and rather have higher percentages of the healthy ones. And I think in the long run that will help us from the perspective of the consumer. So the color coding is very easy to read and identify. I hope we get there one day.
Same. Yeah, and I mean, Irama, just to add up to what he said, even in some jurisdictions, the color codes extend beyond the product itself. They have extra comprehensive policies that require supermarket shops to actually color their shelves. So once you enter once you enter the shop, there's a red shelf column for all the bad foods, not bad, but not so healthy foods. These are some of the policy recommendations we are looking at. Ones that at least it binds everybody. We are not looking at something that is serving just a group. We are looking at an extensive policy, a comprehensive policy that binds everyone. Look at our children. They move into supermarket. Most of them are not even of reading age. They can't read, so they pick what like they want to. Exactly. But imagine a child enters a supermarket and sees red means stop, yellow means get, green means go, go, go. Going for the green. You don't have to explain to the child. So these are some of the policy recommendations we are really looking at.
Is there a reason as to why up to now Ghana we don't have that here?
Well, it's the regulations. Like she said, I mean, FDA said they are working towards meeting international standard. And international standard is the color coding. So we hope we get there soon. And that will really help us, because these food labels things, if people are able to understand it, it will really help prevent their risks of NCDs. Because if I know certain foods are not good and I understand, then I will avoid those foods. I would rather go towards the healthy nutrients if I'm able to understand the label. Using the 5/20 rule. So 5 means less, 20 means high. But high for a healthy nutrient is good. Lower for unhealthy nutrient is bad. So it's as simple as that. We hope we get there one day. And I think it will be in the interest of the consumer, and that can help reduce the impact of NCDs and then the prevalence as well.
True. So back to you again, Mr. Maxwell. So we were talking about the critical indicators on the nutrition aspect, and you mentioned the ingredients and all of that. If there's more to it, we'd like you to give it
so aside I talked about the expiry date. I talked about the ingredient list, then the calorie part where you want to look at the calories. Then we also talked about the major nutrients, that's total carbohydrates, the type of fat, the protein, and then the nutrients. So the rule is that you use the percentages, because if I say fat should be about 1.5 gram, I mean a layman will not everyone will understand. So just stick to the percentages. Now aside these things, you would also want to look at the labeling of the food to make sure that it should be fully covered. If, for instance, you pick a canned product and you realize that the lid is not well closed, it means that that product has been tampered with. So you want to be sure that the product is fully sealed, because there are storage conditions for every product, and it's written on the product. So another thing you want to look at is the storage conditions. Even drugs, they will tell you at a certain temperature, at a certain humidity.
So sometimes you see store in a warm place and all of that.
Dry, cool place, all those things. So you need to read every detail and understand. So once you know this product is not supposed to be exposed to sunlight, then you have to put it away from heat. Otherwise, you are going to destroy the product. So one important thing is to look at the conditions in which the product is being stored. Then you look at the product itself and make sure that the covering is fully done. There shouldn't be any, the lid should not be so loose and all that, because when that happens, it means that the product has been tampered with now. So all these things put together is just to inform the consumer and help you to know what choices to make. Okay, because people tend to eat a lot of sugar, fat and salt because they don't even understand the figures on the labels. Okay, so per this discussion, now if you pick a product and you see sugar or added sugar to be 20%, you see saturated and trans fat, which is more than 20%, or even let's say above 10%, then you pick salt, and then the milligram of salt is around 400 milligrams. It means it's high. And then maybe the percentage will help. If it's 20%, now, yes. So there's a strong, relationship between salt intake and blood pressure. Okay. So if you are taking products that are 20% high in sodium, you are going to risk yourself of high blood pressure. The same with diabetes and sugar. So if you are taking product that has added sugars of more than 10%, 10% is medium. But let's say 20%, which is very high, you can risk getting diabetes. Then for the fat, if the percentage of trans fat is more than 20%, you can easily get high cholesterol. Now, high cholesterol, diabetes combined are the leading causes of kidney failure in Ghana as I'm talking to you. Wow. So when you see people having kidney problems, the kidneys will not just fail. There has to be a stress, and that stress is mostly as a result of either diabetes or blood pressure. Just recently in Kolebu, they are contemplating increasing the cost of dialysis. I think from 435 somewhere to 735. That's way almost close to 100% or 50% increase, which is not good. And we have just few machines. People get up at 4 a.m. They get to the house late because you have to be in a queue just to save your life. So prevention is the ultimate, and that is why we are advocating that read the labels, know what the labels means, and let it inform your choice of food. By doing so, it will help reduce your risk of these diseases. Because when diet is right, medication will be of what? Of no use. And so we expect every person to be interested in reading the label, the expiry date, the ingredient list, the storage, and even going ahead to make sure the product is fully covered, to be sure that whatever you are doing is safe for you. If it is not safe, do not consume. Because if you are worried about the cost, if you are sick, you will spend more money than you would have spent buying an expensive product. So for me, the rule of the thumb is if a product does not have a label, I will not go for it. It means that product has not gone through the FDA, because there's no way FDA will approve a product without a food label. So we are doing well, but we still think that there's more room for improvement. So never take any product in the market, let's say either a food supplement or a drug, or let's say food that is well packaged and is supposed to have a food label and it's not there. If it's not there, don't go for it. If it's normal food like our normal Winnie mix or maize powder, those ones fine. Once you are sure it's natural, fine. But if it's a constituted product in the industry and there's no food label on it, you don't have to go for that food. And sometimes it's written in some language. Yes, I was about to ask you that, because German, language,
French, and all of that. So you ask yourself if it was produced here or it was imported, or all of that.
So it's supposed to have interpretations of both. So you have the French at the back, you have the English at the back. So the one that does not have both is not complying with the standard, because the standard is that you must have both, either French or English, or if it's Dutch language, you must have English attached. So if the product is just Dutch, then you may want to go online and type the product to find out whether you can get something in terms of the English versions. So that is very important. If you don't understand the language, make sure you turn the product where to see whether there's an English version of it, because that will really help. Because how do you interpret something in Dutch when you are not speaking that language? So that is some of the things that people are not doing and manufacturers are not doing. We think they should. We hope that we'll get to that point where every product in Ghana would have a food label, and it will really help us in terms of making the right choices, and that consequently will have impact on our overall health.
Okay, so you're talking about how we can, you know, understand the stuffs on the labels and all of that. Now, honestly, most of the things that is written on this label is very hard to understand. It's very technical, you know, for a layman to understand. They have scientific names on it and all of that. So how are we going to easily be able to interpret that? Aside from the percentages and all of that, there are other stuffs on the label as well that are very difficult to understand. So how should a layman be able to interpret all of these scientific terms?
Yeah, so I mean, there's mostly the milligram or the grams attached. Okay, so the grams and the milligrams goes the same way with the percentages. So if, for instance, trans fat should be 1.5 gram, okay, and then it's high. If it's 1.5 or less, is low. Now, if it's more than 1.5, it will be flagged as a higher percentage. So mostly, if it's above 5 gram, that is high. So you see that the percentage will be around 20%. So the grams would even be more confusing. So what I would rather advise is just use the 5/20 rule, which is the percentages. The color coding would have been the easiest, but we are not there yet.
Unfortunately.
And we hope we get there soon, because that is what, I mean, Prof. Lal and other researchers, including Alliance for NCDs, are fighting against, where we get to a point where we use the color coding. They are still fighting, and we hope that one day FDA will be able to enforce it. So I think basically the percentages would help, because if we go into the grams, it will even be more confusing. Because you have to know the gram that you require for the day and find out what is there to find out whether it's high or low. But the percentages easily strikes a bell, because once I see a certain high percentage, then I'm going to avoid that food. But if it's a healthy food, I would rather go and take more. So if the iron is 20%, that is excellent. You go for it. But if it's sodium, then you want to run for your life, because sodium can increase your risk of blood pressure.
Okay, so I have another question though. You know, sometimes when you get these products, sometimes you see these things, keep away from children under 18 or under 12 and all of that. How do products actually affect children under that age, and why is it labeled on the products?
Yeah, so it's basically because that product is not recommended for children who are less than, mostly they will say less than 18 years or a certain age. Sometimes you have less than 12 years. So maybe a particular ingredient in that food is not healthy for a child. That is when they state that. It's mostly common in food supplements and drugs. Because there are certain drugs you cannot give to a child. They have children versions of that drug. So they will write that keep out of the reach of children. It is not just because they think a child will destroy the product. It is because it's harmful. So you need to actually keep the product away from the child. Otherwise, if you are not careful, a child who is very explorative will go and pick the whole thing and drink. And that could be injurious to the health, because most children, their kidneys are not strong enough to process some of these products. They may have high protein, they may have certain, if it's a drug, they may have certain chemicals the kidneys cannot process. And when they take it, it can destroy the kidneys or liver. So that is why we will say that keep out of the reach of children. And it should be strictly adhered. You must put it away from children, because children are very, very
adventurous.
Adventurous. Before you realize, they will drink the whole thing. Especially the drugs that taste sugary. You know, so it's important that you adhere to those standards. So if any ingredient in there can be harmful to the child, they will write it, keep it out of the reach of children.
Okay, interesting. So we'll be wrapping up the show very soon. So Madam Julie, let me come to you. If there's any last advice you have for the viewers.
Well, as RD is advising consumers to be more skeptical about what they consume, pay attention to the labels, ask questions, use Google. We would also like to entreat the government. For us, we believe that choices is not just on a facial level. Like people do not choose because they want to choose. A lot of factors go into the choices people make. And I mean, if you have a little background in psychology, you would know that for someone to even choose to, for me to even choose to wear this jacket today, it's not just because it's the only jacket that I have.
There's a reason.
There are so many factors that go behind why people choose the things they choose. And then the government has a big responsibility when it comes to protecting people
you can protect people from what they choose. If it's not available, why would I choose it? It's not there. Even if I want to, it's not there. And so we must understand that this is not only restricted to the consumer. Call for food labeling policies that are effective. It's not just about pleasing the consumer to know what to choose, and it's about getting the government to be responsible for the people that he owes the right to. So you owe us Ghanaians, including myself, you, and all our viewers, the responsibility to protect our food environment. We must have only what is healthy. We must have access to only what is healthy. If I only have healthy, I cannot choose unhealthy. So that would be my final comments, calling out to the government, the Ministry of Health, the FDA especially, to take up the responsibility and stand for us. Uphold our right to life and uphold our right to health. Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in today. Before you go, I'd like you to put out your contact information in case one wants to reach out to you.
All right. So you can get me at the University of Ghana Hospital. I work there from Monday to Friday. And my contact number is 0542 205538. 0542 205538. You can get me on Facebook at Maxwell Bisala Conlan.
Okay, so thank both of you for coming in. Yes, and we've been speaking to Maxwell Bisala Conlan and also Juliet Boateng, and they have educated us on how we can understand, you know, the simple terms we have on our food labels right here in Ghana. And I'll be wrapping up the Stay Alive segment, but then again, Healthy Morning is not yet over. We still have more interesting segments coming up soon. James is going to come in soon. Stay tuned.